Hello everyone. In this video we will be seeing movie of what if Naruto was in the DC universe, so be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. Though Naruto had been extremely cautious, his battle had been captured by enemy forces. The Light had a close experience of his powers as they watched him dominate Centurion. It was done through the usage of magic beyond Naruto's capabilities by Clarion the Witch Boy. They didn't interfere and opted to watch and analyze the new entity. They had heard everything from the interview, but they wanted to see him in the field. They wanted to see if they could work together as their goal was similar. The members of Light weren't gathered in a single place and watched off a screen. All of them appeared as shadow holograms in a central location where they watched the magical screen and had their usual meetings. They had different bases around the world and all of them were equipped with some measure of high-tech equipment. That idiot was asking for it. His stupid face looked even more idiotic with those cringy dialogues, Clarion muttered with a childish tone as he saw Centurion's retarded display. Clarion was a Croatian, which was a mixed race between humans and the Sheeta. Melmoth, the king of Sheeta, had created the original witch men and witch women by interbreeding with the humans at Roanoke. He was born in Limbo Town, where the former residents of Roanoke ended up after supposedly disappearing centuries ago. Clarion Bleak grew up in a sort of perverted version of Puritania, where necromancy was common and every witch man, witch woman and witch child had their own familiar. His true father having disappeared years earlier, Clarion always suspected there was a world beyond, but was vigorously discouraged from asking questions by the strict submissionary Judah. However, when a spine rider of the Sheeta arrived in Limbo Town one day, Judah and his fellow submissionaries panicked, convinced that the spine rider had been sent in advance of their extermination. They transformed themselves into a Horrigal, a monstrous gestalt form bonding the three of them and their familiars together. They then attacked all the witchmen in town, including Clarion's stepfather Ezekiel. Clarion, who had found out about the Horrigal and had tried to warn everyone, was pursued by the monster and fled upwards. In the process he was separated from Tikal, his familiar. He went through some adventures in the human world, and returned back to his world, saving them from annihilation. However, Clarion was adventurous and couldn't stand living a stagnant life. So, he returned to Earth and started looking for fun. Lex Luthor approached him with a proposal, and Clarion agreed because he found it very fun and engaging. He was part human, so the Light had no issue with his membership. Plus, Clarion was extremely powerful and added his magical prowess to the group's disposal. Ha. He could definitely become a good comedian. Joker laughed as he judged Centurion's display as a joke. Even the crazy jester was part of the group, but even he had his part and wasn't just there to make them laugh. Joker was one of the most insane beings in the universe, and it was that insanity that the Light wished to use for their benefits. He was unpredictable and showed them a way that was out of the box for normal people, meaning he was one of their strategists and he also helped with breaking people. Joker was an expert at mind-breaking and torture, allowing them to brainwash people. Before becoming the Joker, he was a failed stand-up comedian with a wife named Jeannie. Jeannie was pregnant with their first child, but due to his difficult life he started becoming erratic and mentally imbalanced. Jeannie, fearing for both her life and the life of their unborn child, went to the police, who helped her fake her death and moved to Alaska to escape her husband. The man who would become the Joker was informed that his wife and child had died, forcing him to experience one bad day. Many years later, Jeannie continued to live in Alaska in peace with her son, neither she nor the Joker knowing where they had landed in life. Bruce Wayne, who had encountered the comedian before he became the Joker, was aware of her true fate, and kept it a secret in order to protect her and her son. Because of this, he was also forced to keep Joker's true name a secret. He used to be a kind man that had gone through abuse from childhood and lived in a dark world. His mind was hanging by a thin thread called family, and with them gone, he snapped. He snapped and killed the people that beat him up. From that point, he slowly descended into complete insanity. He couldn't feel that this was real anymore and treated it as such. He forgot about his family, and all he became numb unless he was playing with people's lives. To him, his world was fake. It was just a story to be enjoyed, so he made sure to entertain the audience. Other than these two childish members, the rest were pretty much serious individuals with high level of intellect as their unique point. There was the leader of the Light, Alexander Joseph Luthor, also called Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor was the genius, ego-centered metropolis businessman who, with his company LexCorp and scientifically advanced warsuit, had acted as both an antagonist and ally to Superman and the Justice League. From the beginning, Lex set himself up as a troubleshooter. When he began intercepting signals from an alien craft that called itself the Brain Interacting Construct, he set up a dialogue, trading data about Earth for alien scientific knowledge. Through a strange benefactor, he was recruited into an alliance of convenience with General Lane of Project, Steel Soldier, and Glenn Morgan, the corporate master of Metropolis, against Superman. However, Luthor double-crossed Lane and Glenn Morgan, stealing the kryptonite the group planned to use, and leaked their plan to a reporter named Clark Kent. He attempted to aid Brainiac during the shrinking of Metropolis, but, in the aftermath, there was no evidence and so the government was forced to let him go. Luthor spent the next several years filling the power vacuum in Metropolis left by Glenn Morgan, around 4 years after the formation of the Justice League. He instigated the American invasion of Korak so that he could sell his super weapons to the army. That was also the year that he personally faced Superman for the first time and was detained by the hero, receiving a facial scar across the left side of his face in the fight. Luthor spent a year in prison, during which Superman would sometimes visit to ask his opinion of a particularly troubling scientific disaster. However, his prison sentence didn't last long and he was back in business with more power than ever. Seeing that he alone wasn't enough, Lex started a group to lead humanity after understanding the universe. His pride couldn't allow him to sit down and allow other species to dwarf humanity, as such the light was created. To them, the heroes were a hindrance and a plague that caused humanity to stagnate because of over-reliance. Humanity had become reliant on them, and didn't even try to find their own solution for the fundamental problem. Lex found people that were useful to the group and could contribute. Ultra-Humanite was Superman's first recurring nemesis, even ahead of Luthor. Due to a scientific experiment, the Ultra-Humanite had the most agile and learned brain on Earth. He was one of the greatest criminal geniuses ever. Unfortunately for him, while the energies of his mind continued to develop and expand, even developing low-level mind energy techniques such as telepathy, his physical brain interface never advanced. Unable to contain the mental energies, his body began slowly burning out. Thus, in his early career, he was a small, elderly, crippled scientist who fought Superman using his intellect, inventions, and numerous frontmen and stooges. The Ultra-Humanite's signature achievement was surgically transferring his brain into other bodies. But that wasn't enough, and he needed a stronger body to handle his expanding prowess. As such, he came into contact with Brain and transferred his brain into a modified silver gorilla. With that, he entered a new realm of physical and mental power. It advanced all his abilities, and he started working with Brain before both of them were recruited by Lex. He was a man with deep interest in experimentation, and agreed with the vision of the group. He had suffered the limitation of humanity, and was ready to make the ultimate human form, though he was very ambitious and even held the desire to rule all of humanity. Just like the rest of the members, he was not truly subordinate, and saw himself as an equal to everyone else. The Brain was a superb scientist, as he was capable of reverse engineering the cobra venom, and used it on Indian fauna to enhance their strength. He also evinces some sadistic traits, mainly evidenced when he surgically removed his victims' brains while they were still alive. The Brain has an idiosyncratic speech pattern. He speaks English with a very thick French accent, and often code switches, throwing French words in the mix. He does this because he detests speaking English. The Brain was essentially a disembodied brain kept alive in a mechanical dome. Before that, he took the appearance of a scraggy, tall man with unkempt black hair and black eyes. His new robot body was equipped with retractable mechanical appendages that allowed him to handle objects as well as weapons. The robot body had been enhanced after joining the Light, which gave him ample reasons to follow the group since he saw the benefit of their cooperation. The Brain was one of the unnamed leaders of a group of scientists that settled in Bunda in 2008 to conduct experiments on the indigenous gorillas. The scientists built a compound of laboratories, which they named Gorilla City, as a display of sadistic mockery, and proceeded to enslave an entire troop of gorillas. They subdued the gorillas with inhibitor collars and enhanced them with brain procedures and cobra venom, meaning the Brain had an army of super gorillas under his command that were equipped with high-tech weaponry. Following the two scientists, there was one of the warriors of the group called Black Manta. Black Manta was the archenemy of Aquaman. He was originally an agent of Ocean Master, but later became one of the leaders of the Light. Black Manta was a black male with high cheekbones and black hair that was graying around the temples. He sported a thin ring beard. Black Manta's suit was characterized by the manta-shaped head with two large, daunting red eyes that also allowed him to shoot plasma beams from. There were small tubes that connected from the back of the head to his shoulders. The hands of his suit were webbed. The suit also sported fins on each of his legs. Hidden in his suit were compartments that allow him to fire rockets. The suit had gone through heavy modification after joining the group, and he was sure that it was more than enough to dominate his nemesis. But he chose patience because Aquaman had the backing of the Justice League, and Manta wasn't strong for that threat. The boy who would become Black Manta was an autistic youth who grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and loved to play by the sea. As a youth, he was kidnapped and forced to work on a ship for an unspecified amount of time. At one point, he apparently saw Aquaman with his dolphin friends and tried to signal him for help but was not seen. Finally, he was forced to defend himself, killing one of his tormentors on the ship with a knife. Hating the emotionless sea, the boy was determined to become its master. Placed into an institution for his mental affliction, the boy was treated cruelly by his attendants. The boy experienced being immersed in water as sublime ecstasy, while the softness of the cotton sheets of his bed bore for him excruciating pain. The attendants would strap him to the bed anyway, and to stifle his screams of pain, they would smother him with pillows until he passed out. The boy could barely speak, usually repeating a few words such as love swim. The doctors began performing experimental treatments on the boy, experiments that seemed to cause him pain. One of these experiments was successful enough that he became able to speak in complete sentences. Using his newfound ability to seem normal, the boy put his doctor at ease enough to unstrap him. Afterward, the boy used the syringe used to help him speak to murder the doctor and escape. As an adult, he designed a costume and fashioned a high-tech submersible inspired by black manta rays. Taking the name Black Manta, he and his masked army became a force to be reckoned with. Manta became a menace to Aquaman and would try his best to destroy Atlantis no matter what. He was a ruthless bastard that would murder anything that came in his way. Black Manta was commanding, focused, and led his men with great authority. He had shown to detest any failure or mistake, and chastises his men for any failings. Black Manta could lose his temper if things do not go according to plan. His power and expertise were a great addition to the group as the muscle. Along with the other warriors, Manta also enjoyed the new inventions and powers. He was mainly focused on the ocean side of things. Ra's al Ghul was the founder of the League of Assassins and League of Shadows, an organization of deadly warriors that he used to achieve his goal of ridding the world of evil. The League's violent methods had made him a sworn enemy of the Batman. Through the continued use of a Lazarus pit, Ra's had been able to live for thousands of years and had gathered large amount of experience in multiple fields. He was a man with great knowledge and wisdom, having contacts everywhere. There was not a thing that had escaped his knowledge. He was one of the main leaders of the light and contributed with his strategies and his shadows that were excellent as assassins, information gatherers, and kidnappers. After meeting Lex, he had come to the same conclusion and agreed with the vision. Humanity with its current form was too limited and weak. Their destruction was a matter of time, and it was certain because of how the world was developing. Just like the rest of the group, he had also developed beyond his initial prowess as he let go of his inhibitions about genetic manipulation. In the group as one of the muscles was Slade Wilson, known by his codename Deathstroke. The man was an elite mercenary, commonly considered the world's greatest and deadliest assassin. He was a master of weapons, and with the help of the light he had become a threat to superhumans. Deathstroke was cool and efficient in the discharge of his duties. The emotionless mask does tend to slip when he was truly challenged, and a degree of impatience slips through. He also takes great delight in the thrill of battle, and takes a sadistic relish in taunting his opponents. Deathstroke was also very ambitious as he made plans to take a seat at the table, at the head of the light. Though he truly cared for his children and wished to make a better world for them in his own way, he had lived in the battlefield for too long and made many enemies. It was impossible to live a normal life. He was one of the biggest enemies of the Titans and had been a thorn for Batman countless times. Deathstroke was a tall, slender man with long white hair and a full beard. He was missing his right eye and wore an eye patch while the remaining eye was blue. His armor was primarily black and gray with goldenrod greaves and gauntlets. He wore a matching goldenrod mask with a black area that obscured the right half of his face, including his missing eye. He wore a utility belt with pouches and sheaths for a sword and rifle on his back. The other main member of the group was called Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage, born Vandar Adg, is an immortal caveman supervillain. Vandar Adg was born in the 47th millennium BCE, in what would one day be the Périgord Noir region of France as the son of the chief. One spring there was a territory dispute between his clan of Neanderthals and a group of Cro-Magnons. However, a bright shooting star caused a halt to the hostilities, which Vandar used to kill the rival chieftain. His father claimed the kill, and when the clan went to see the fallen shooting star, his father claimed that too. But Vandar felt hurt, and wanted the acclaim he felt was due. He killed his father with a strange glowing rock, even as it wrought fearsome changes on his body, and when his clan tried to punish him for the murder, he killed them too. His clan had regarded the meteor as evidence of the benevolence of the sun, their god, but as Vandar's life extended to a superhuman degree, his religious view would become more complex, and he would enact intricate ritual sacrifices in honor of the deities he thanked for his gift of immortality. Vandar tried to found empires, but all of his efforts ended in collapse, and this frustrated him. Vandar drifted west, somehow becoming affiliated with the Vandals, even gaining the moniker Vandal Savage. After the most recent fall of Camelot, Vandar found himself in the town of Little Spring, and wound up accidentally founding the Demon Knights, which later became Stormwatch. Just like that, Vandal moved through the years learning new things and causing death and despair over the centuries. By the modern times, he had grown tired of such things and become civilized. Though he still committed crimes and didn't like being ruled by weaklings, Lex came to him and Vandal agreed, as he had learned over his journey, that the world was at risk. There was a storm on the way and they might not live through it. Humanity needed to reach a new level of power and leave the current solar system or face extinction. Vandal was uncaring towards outsiders, but he wasn't a loner. He wanted to live in a place populated by his people and rule over them. The final member of the group was known as Queen Bee, and her name was Zazala. Zazala of Coral is Queen Bee, an intergalactic conqueror. The leader of the hive world Coral, Zazala lived only for the interstellar expansion of her species. However, she was not immortal and could die from age. Queen Zazala created an army of bee men to find a potion of immortality for her. She first tested them by having them loot various worlds. But on Earth they failed, being defeated by the Justice League. Seeing the heroes of the world through the bees on the planet, Zazala realized that it would cause immense damage to her people to fight directly. As such, she decided to act patiently and destroy her enemies from within. She took over the mind of a human leader and helped the country become powerful. Her ferocity and power attracted Lex, and she joined the group, which made her objective much easier, or she would have slowly taken over all the leaders of the world. Zazala was a powerful being with royal attitude. She was overwhelming and demanded servitude from others. She looked down on humanity as an inferior species, but that changed somewhat because of the light. Every member was unique, and together they had the power to rule the world. Their enemies on Earth were the Justice League, Titans, USA government, Russian government, Chinese government, and finally the Stormwatch led by Merlin. Getting back to the scene, the members finished watching the battle and were quiet except for the talkative ones. They were absorbing what they had seen and analyzing it carefully. Their decisions were calculated and were made slowly, not hastily, since mistakes weren't allowed. Most of them were perfectionists for such a thing. Losing Centurion to Naruto wasn't a problem as they had already gotten his DNA. They had examined the man completely and could make a clone without much trouble, especially with the help of Clarion, who could handle the spiritual part if there was an issue. Though none of them believed that there would be an issue since Centurion's power came from an experiment by some ancient scientist. It was quite disappointing. But that man has caught my interest. Is he really the will of humanity? Zazala muttered with a hint of curiosity as she rubbed her lips and watched Naruto intently on the screen. His existence put her in a dilemma and made her feel jealous if that was true. She had never seen such a thing for her people or any other being. So why was humanity so blessed? She had already been worried about the heroes, but the new player might completely destroy her plan. Can it be controlled? Zazala thought about mind-controlling Naruto to completely take over all of humanity like she controlled her people. Her question was on everyone's mind. Was he really the will of humanity, or was he just talking empty words? V, what do you think? Have you heard anything about this before? Lex asked using the code name of the members, their first initial. Just like everyone, he was also curious and in deep thought. He asked Vandal because of his long age and journey. Vandal had been thinking on this question since he heard about the man, but nothing seemed to click. He had never heard about such a thing. No, I haven't come across such a thing. Maybe it developed a complete conscious in recent years, Vandal replied while walking around hologram of Naruto as the members had finished watching the battle and decided to focus on one individual. None of the other members had anything to add about him either, so there was no information about him previously. Bringing his data to the front, Lex had everyone shift their focus to it. Using their high-tech system installed in the LexCorp satellite, the light could analyze individuals and other things from the safety of their base. The tech was gained from Darkseid before his invasion, and it was finally being utilized properly by the group. He doesn't possess a flesh body, but replicates all of it with pure energy of some kind. Or he can only form in that manner, Ultra-Humanite muttered as he looked at the data. His energy levels are almost equal to our planet. The threat level is high. How does he compare to our main enemies? Brain muttered as he compared the data with others. He has less energy than Green Lantern and Superman. But is this all of it? He seemed to be everywhere at once, so that might not be an accurate reading. Regardless, this data won't really help us clarify the fact about his origin. We might need to make contact with him. Ras Al Ghul added as he looked at Naruto. He could see that the man was a warrior, but that didn't make him any human since he was supposed to be the will of humanity. Apt point, but we might need to test him first. His objective is similar, but he might be too hard to handle even if his words were false. Lex agreed with his words but disliked Naruto's tone. It seemed that he was going to be treated like a dog if they ever met. None of them disagreed since Naruto had clearly said it on television. How do we test him? What if he was truly the will? Then we might be digging our graves. Manta spoke up and brought out the risks involved. There is only one risk: slavery. He has publicly declared that everyone gets a second chance, and it is visible from his approach. We don't have to fear him in the first encounter. Second encounter is where we have the risk of death. Deathstroke disagreed with Manta and corrected his interpretation of the situation. Both belonged to the group, but there was always some rivalry involved. Let me play with him, guys. I will make him sing very quickly, Clarion offered with a smile as he also found the mystery interesting, and he was itching to solve it. The offer was very attractive, but there was the problem of Dr. Fate getting involved if Clarion was cited. Then, let us plan for the meeting. We need to give Clarion some time to test him before others interfere, Raz muttered as he brought out the list of the enemy forces so that the members could plan for them. They all planned, but none of them wanted to discuss the possibility of losing. They all possessed pride in their belief and wouldn't want to submit. The Light was not the only one that took heavy notice of Naruto's actions. The US government was on heavy alert once they realized what had taken place. In a single day, many of their financiers and men in Gotham had been taken out. Gotham had heavy business traffic and was a source of heavy funding for the politicians. The crime lords also worked with them, providing them money and support when required. The core of the government was ruled by few parties: the Zionists, the Saudi royals, the defense industry, the finance, and finally the old noble lords that ruled from the shadows. Even though the monarchy had ended, the noble families had not disappeared, and they never forsook their powers. They changed with times and controlled from the background. The Defense Industry Association was big business and was the source of equipment for the army. From their inception, they had encouraged the nation into war because without war their earnings would lessen. These vultures cared not for the lives of human beings and just loved money. They lobbied legally and influenced decisions by hiring retired generals. As such, even the generals that were still working for the government would make decisions in their favor to please their future boss. Their power had only grown when they had come across alien tech, and they decided to further their control like the rest of the parties, leading to the current setup. It was the same with the finance side, and they had a stake in everything. The Saudi royals brought money to the table but were mostly subservient to the Zionists and U.S. parties. In the old times they had been operating differently and wished to bring together the Middle East as a powerful force, but that went against USA's interest. So, the leader at that time was eliminated, and someone agreeable was put in place. That was the policy of the U.S. government, and it had been applied all across the world, leading to millions of innocents' deaths and destruction of order in developing nations. The Zionists, on the other hand, had a big hand in the U.S. government. They had slowly infiltrated before the Second World War and taken control from the shadows. The U.S. ensured that their country was built and helped them by destroying their enemies, one by one. They were part of the biggest organizations in the world, and wished to weaken other nations in their region to make them ripe for takeover. They believed that all of humanity was made to serve them, and were below animals in the hierarchy of life. Not everyone agreed to their agenda, but sadly citizens were never actually strong enough to change the core decisions of a nation. All these forces had a leader, and they worked together as a group to take over the world under the leadership of the Zionist. It would have been under the leadership of the old nobles, but those nobles had also been infiltrated through marriages, just like the Zionists had done to old empires. They had done it to the Ottoman Empire, making most of the sultans from their bloodline. However, the incompetence of the future sultans, and the power being in the hands of the army and the harem, led to the collapse of the system. Getting back to the scene, 5 shadows could be seen on individual screens in a secret lab. The only person really present there was Amanda, who was one of the top agents of these leaders. Amanda Waller was a U.S. government agent renowned for her brutal methods and ruthless approach. She was director of the government agency ARGUS but still maintained her leadership over Task Force X, otherwise known as the Suicide Squad. During the Parademon invasion which led to the creation of the Justice League, Amanda Waller was an NSA operative, seconded to the army to assist military intelligence in its campaign against the Basilisk terrorist group. Soon afterwards, however, she was recruited into a field team of the secret government research effort called Project Majestic. The team, codenamed Team, was tasked with finding tactics to counter aggressive metahumans and securing related technologies and knowledge. Waller served with aplomb, as several of her teammates developed metahuman abilities from their improbable missions. However, on their final mission, the truth was revealed. The team was intended as a means for the U.S. government to gather what it would need to create a metahuman on par with Superman. The newly activated metahuman sank the island nation of Gomorrah, which had supported Basilisk, and the team disbanded. Not reporting back to the government out of disgust with the lie of her previous assignment, Waller wound up in Malaysia, spending her days playing pinball in a bar. However, she wound up getting recruited by a CIA team led by Lawrence Duran, who asked her to help them fight a nearby Basilisk operation. Waller agreed, but in the end, she alone walked away from the mission. This tragedy, coupled with her Team 7 experience and the anger of the Duran family, led her to pursue a radical plan, to recruit bad people to do bad things, so that good people would be safe. Taking control of the metahuman prison Belle Reve, Amanda Waller learned of Task Force U and the 2 specialist task forces that succeeded it. She began profiling the supercriminal inmates. Those that she chose were put through her initiation process, and whoever made it through to the end were assigned to Task Force X, which was informally called the Suicide Squad. Her success and wisdom allowed her to gain access to the depth of the system, and she was truly disgusted by the people at the top. However, she could do nothing but follow the plan, as her mind could never think against the group. All of them had gathered for the first time in a while because of Naruto. Looking at his actions and the time taken, it was a matter of months that he would conquer their territory, USA. And it wouldn't be long before he took their other territories. It was an urgent meeting with a clear threat on their mind for the first time in a long time. Their last meeting had been at the appearance of world-destroying heroes and at the inception of the Justice League. All members were immortal, and everyone was extremely old except the Saudi royal and Amanda. Amanda had been given immortality after proving her usefulness to the group. The group had no name, and was just called the group by the people in the know. All members were genetically modified over the years they had been alive, and would take over new identities each century. All of them had immense wealth and authority. They had invested heavily into the field and wanted to stay at the top. That purpose had been easy when comparing rest of humanity, but the knowledge of aliens put fear into them. None of them wanted to live under the foot of someone else, and they didn't want to die. They acted servile to Darkseid and got the benefits while believing in the hero's ability to win. They benefited wonderfully from their investment, and managed to get technology that allowed them leap 1,000 years into the future. While the heroes were playing around, the group was silently researching and creating super soldiers that would ensure a galactic empire. Their vision had expanded, and now they had the resources for such a goal. Their goals matched Naruto's and the Light's, but they were all opposing forces that would not compromise with each other. Amanda, get rid of him by any means possible. The leader spoke with a harsh tone, and he didn't entertain the idea of talks with the unknown force. In the group he went by the name of Lord Q. Amanda had expected the order once she had seen the reports. This was the most complex enemy she had come across after a long time. The heroes were easy to predict and operated openly within limits, making them easy foes. It had been the Light that had been a problem to them. Though they did fear all these powerful creatures moving around without any control, they had no power to enforce rules on these creatures. That fear was one of the leading forces making them act so violently towards the heroes. The government was useless if it couldn't enforce rules of society, and that was the problem those superhumans brought. To solve that problem, they had taken drastic measures. Human experimentation had been on the low for some time, but it increased because of the need. They had been experimenting on normal and superhumans that were caught by then or delivered by the heroes. Their research of centuries plus the new research of 10 years with the alien tech had brought them excellent results. It was just a matter of time that they would enslave all the heroes and make use of them to make their galactic empire. It was truly a blessing that the powerful heroes were very irresponsible with their fights, leaving traces that could be used to clone them. The group had acquired Kryptonian DNA, Martian DNA, demonic DNA, Temerian DNA, Amazonian DNA from Wonder Woman, and even DNA from Darkseid. They were working on multiple DNA from all the powerful creatures that had been on Earth to create the ultimate structure for themselves and lower version for their army. Even before the completion, they had already utilized the prototype and achieved immense power, though it was still below the required level to compete with Superman and such creatures. Their prime prototype was the Suicide Squad, as it was the most successful with these genetic modifications, as these insane criminals held a strong mind and physique. But for the power they received, they had all been programmed into servitude for the group on a genetic level. They couldn't even think of betrayal, and that was what they intended to use on all of humanity and their future slaves. Is it viable to show our hand so soon? It will invite the hero's attention and our other enemies. The finance master, also known as Mr. F, asked as he thought that the leader was looking down on the other threats. Mr. F, we will only be delaying the inevitable. It took him a day to take Gotham. This country might be taken by the end of the month. We can't delay his extermination. All agreed? Lord Q responded to his inquiry calmly. It seems the finance minister was too used to playing the long game. It was good to be patient, but there was a time when haste was necessary. Agreed. With the approval of the group, Amanda started to move. She wouldn't have agreed normally, but after the modification, she felt only pleasure at achieving her tasks. She finally had a good target for her new team. There was the risk of failure if Naruto's words were true, but the group didn't even entertain such idea. And that was also true for Amanda. She didn't care whatever Naruto was, she was going to bring him down. While people planned to kill him, Naruto made a Fuinjutsu seals on Centurion just like the rest, but made them extra powerful to accommodate the power level of the target. Naruto also changed his appearance with true transformation, as he didn't want others to locate him or cause issues for his group. With the seal done, Naruto left Centurion to train his abilities in a more efficient manner, as the man wasn't some genius. Naruto didn't lock him up and gave him permission to leave with his new form to the outside world like the rest of the team whenever he wanted, after he had finished the daily training. With that finished, Naruto sent a wind clone to the Justice League. He could sense that the members had gathered to discuss about Centurion or some other topic. On the Watchtower, most of the members had gathered for the meeting since the existence of the Centurion had been confirmed. The group needed to capture him, and they also needed to discuss on the topic of their purpose. The world was changing and it felt like they had been falling behind. It wasn't just a gut feeling, but Wonder Woman had gotten a warning from above. There was a chance that they could die or be enslaved. That was a warning by Athena, and Diana couldn't ignore words from such a source. The group had only two visible targets with that kind of ability, Emperor and the Light. Moon Maiden had also joined the meeting to give her opinion since she was closely related to Centurion, and even had the role of guiding the world. She supported Naruto along with Superman and Flash in the discussion, as they disagreed that he would try to harm them. The rest were unsure about Naruto, and wouldn't discount him from being the source of their future demise. The meeting had gone for 30 minutes when Naruto knocked on their window. He was like a ghost to their senses, and his casual grace made them stare for a moment to see if they weren't hallucinating. "Hello friends, please allow me entrance so that we can talk." Naruto's wind clone had his armored appearance and none realized the difference. Flash and Superman smiled at his words. Clark looked at his team and they agreed. Naruto entered the Watchtower for the first time and found it impressive, but that wasn't the only thing impressive, as the people gathered were truly marvelous. Zatanna, Ultra Woman, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, Hawkgirl, Moon Maiden, Shazam, Martian Manhunter, Green Arrow, Powerhouse, and Wonder Woman. The group was missing Troya, Black Canary, Black Lightning, Red Tornado, Steel, Superwoman, Aquaman, Aquawoman, Swamp Thing, Firestorm, Aztec, Dr. Fate, and the other two Green Lanterns. The Justice League was without a doubt the strongest force on the planet, and they could easily make it into a utopia if they didn't let their fears and doubts rule them. Even with all the eyes on him, Naruto wasn't worried. He trusted them to act civil. And even without that civility, he had nothing to worry since it was just a wind clone that was being controlled remotely. I hope that it isn't a bad time, Naruto said as he looked at all of them and spoke in a casual, friendly tone. It really showed that he wasn't an enemy and he didn't fear them. No, we were just finishing up, but we were not expecting to meet you so soon. Is there something wrong? Clark treated him the same manner and led him to a seat. They were all curious about him and his presence at the moment. There is definitely something wrong for your group, Superman. However, let us start with some good news first. You don't have to worry about the Centurion as he has been taken care of. Can you elaborate on the meaning of that sentence? Batman walked to the front and stood with Superman as he looked at Naruto directly. It is nice to meet you, Batman. I really like you people a lot and I appreciate what you have done for the world. It is just unfortunate that reality is quite harsh and people don't change just because they are shown the error of their ways. You were quite unlucky to be stuck with an evil government. Excuse me, I almost went off topic. I have put him under my service so that he can pay for his crimes, just like what I did to the rest of the criminals. I just keep some of them under my direct control because of their potential and all of you could be above them if you so wished. Laura, I hope that your worries have been put down. And, I apologize that I have been unable to visit, Naruto replied as he looked Bruce before looking at the others and finally focusing on Laura, who walked towards him. Laura didn't expect him to point her out of the group and she was really happy after hearing his words. Her biggest worry was taken care of and she could finally focus on rebuilding her life. She trusted Naruto as he was like the golden sun to her eyes that saw through the soul. Thank you so much, I would love to have your company. Laura almost cried at his warmth, and Naruto stood up to hug her close. There was armor between them, but Laura felt like there wasn't one. Ahem, what is the bad news? Diana asked as the others felt awkward about disturbing Laura's emotional scene. Naruto patted Laura's back and let her sit by his side before looking at the others. What do you think about the world? Naruto asked a question in return and everyone had a different answer, but most of them couldn't relate it to the bad news. However, the smart ones of the group were fast on the uptake and understood. Good, I really like smart people, and I wish you wouldn't delay the inevitable. Regardless, I will relay my warning to you all as I don't wish for your death. The world is changing and it is stronger than you think. I know everything about humanity, and it is changing directly by someone else to become more powerful. I can accept that outcome, but they are experimenting unethically and making the subjects subservient to them. There is not just one group, there are countless, and all of them are developing. They are growing stronger silently and learning from their mistakes. It won't be long before your group is crushed by the change. I just want you to realize this fact and prepare for a new world. You need to adapt before the world sweeps you away. Or you can always take my hand and we can walk a grand path. Naruto warned them according to the data from Centurion and his own life force reading of the planet. He had sensed huge numbers of fluctuating life energies from the hidden forces. Naruto disappeared from the scene and only left a strong gust that spread across the room. None of them even had a chance to ask for more information. From the wind, they heard his voice as it hit Zatanna. You are strong, Zatanna. But you could die from a simple attack when you aren't ready. Why don't you take care of that problem already? Or do you really wish for death? Leaving the heroes to absorb and analyze his words, Naruto focused on meditating purely as he had taken care of his duties for the day. He had brought his original body to the depth of the planet, near the core, where he had made a training area for his personal use. It was a step taken after taking into account the feeling from the planet and the safety that the core region provided him. Focusing on his power and utilizing the Sage Mode at full capacity, Naruto finally saw his current level. The clone never had all of his chakra, so the Sage Mode and the new enhancement weren't at full capacity. His powers had increased dramatically, but he needed to develop his chakra control further, or he would be limited to the current form. Controlling chakra at such nanoscale was extremely taxing and almost impossible during battle. His mind wandered towards the Rinnegan, which would allow him easy access to such ability, but he held back his desire. Naruto didn't want to force Conan into such a position, and he would wait as promised, and he wanted to see if he could find some other solution to the problem. Learning about programming language, Naruto associated it with Fuinjutsu seals, and theorized that he could make a structure within his body that would help in his objective. Instead of consciously operating the technique, Naruto could create a system that would automatically distribute the chakra according to his programming to the relevant positions. Naruto believed that it was the right path, so he let his clone focus on that topic while he handled something more important. He decided to meet the Kyuubi and finally make him submit. The ascendance was more than enough to overpower the giant beast of Apocalypse. Naruto was extremely confident about his victory as he knew the Kyuubi's stats and they were not comparable anymore. Without further hesitation, Naruto appeared in his soul land where the Kyuubi was sealed. It was a nice place, filled with majesty. There was greenery everywhere, large waterfalls, beautiful lakes and enormous mountains. It was an ideal place to relax and one could even see the moon in the sky. The Kyuubi was sealed behind a large gate that separated him from the side Naruto stood. I didn't expect you to come so soon. Maybe, I overestimated your intelligence, Kurama muttered as he lay on the ground and opened one of his giant eyes to see Naruto standing outside his cage. I also didn't think we would meet so soon, but life is unexpected, so I am here to fight for real this time. Naruto smiled as he walked through the bars. In the Soul Land, he did have his armor, but it didn't provide the real benefits like the real world. In the Soul Land, it was just him and the big angry fox. With Naruto's arrogant entry, Kurama flared up as a large chakra wave crashed into Naruto. Kurama stood up to his full height, and he looked like a mountain, while Naruto wasn't even the size of his pupil. Kurama stood at meter height while his tails were another meters. His appearance was truly daunting for the weak-hearted, and it was a first for Naruto as well. Naruto easily stood ground against the chakra wave and looked up towards Kurama. We will be the perfect partners, so let it become reality. Naruto had a huge smile on his face as he uttered those words and held his giant double battle axe, which was big as Naruto's body without taking into account the handle. Naruto swung it with desire to harm his foe, a testing shot. Huge amounts of wind energy gathered around the axe, and Naruto swung it at full force. This was his new power, and according to expectation, it would at least leave a heavy injury on the creature. However, reality was often disappointing, and expectations would usually crash. The giant wind blade didn't even touch Kurama as a red barrier blocked the attack without any problem. The barrier was close to the skin and made of hexagonal structural style that easily endured the impact and spread it apart. Kurama smiled, showing his vicious fangs. Did you think that was enough, maggot? I am better than you. I am better than everyone. What you can do, I can do better. With that declaration, Naruto was almost drowned by blood-red chakra hands. Naruto teleported away from the flood with his teleportation ability without using any marking, as it didn't need any physical marking with Sage Mode, and allowed him to teleport freely to any place that was within his range of senses. Following that, he retaliated with a stronger move, Giant Rasengan Bomb. Rasengan was an attack where chakra formed like a ball on his hand, forming from chakra strings that revolved in different directions. It was an attack that destroyed the foe with the power of intense movement, and could easily crave through mountains if the user had enough chakra to supply it. Naruto made it using his new style on the cellular stage, and made it extra big, meaning he put huge amount of chakra into the attack. The attack was built from a cellular stage, and was bigger than a 3-story house. The attack blasted through the red hands and smashed into the red barrier. Both forces struggled intensely, before Kurama swung his tail through the attack and destroyed it. What followed that was a death beam that almost destroyed Naruto. The red beam of horrifying power tore through the land like paper and easily reached the core of the planet, and broke to the other side. Naruto only survived because of his automatic teleportation ability, as nothing could be faster than nature, and he was connected to it. Looking at the impact, Naruto finally realized what had happened. Ha 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 ha, I love you so much. Naruto couldn't contain his excitement and laughed with joy. Such power, such majesty, and such intelligence, he wanted all of it. There was no denying it. Kurama had adapted according to Naruto's knowledge. His new level of strength was the result of applying the same principle as Naruto. Cellular stage, meaning there was no way that Naruto could overpower him. Naruto with Sage Mode was half of Kurama purely from energy perspective, and Kurama had energy equal to a small planet half of Earth. Naruto was lower in stats and his only advantage was teleportation, and unavoidable attacks through usage of teleportation. But he wasn't worried. He was happier with such a performance because it meant that Kurama was extremely smart and knew how to adapt. Naruto's happiness shocked Kurama, as he had expected to see fear and awe. You are totally unhinged, Naruto. How can you celebrate this moment? I am an impossible adversity for you now. Do you not realize that? Or are you lost in a delusion like the rest of your kind? Kurama spoke harshly as his tails moved through the air, showing his agitation. Why wouldn't I? You are my future partner, so I would always wish for you to become stronger. I believe that we will work together. This is a fact. I don't fear anyone, and if I have to battle continuously with you, then I will. You will wear down eventually. Naruto replied honestly, as there was no point lying to Kurama. He could tell when someone was lying. You are just impossible. Kurama released a heavy breath, though he felt touched by those words. Without any hesitation, he continued his assault. His tails extended towards Naruto with impressive speed from all directions. With the new power-up, Kurama had gone from being around lightning speed to faster than light, and his physical strength was beyond planet level. Naruto teleported to the sky and didn't retreat. He was happy to fight and develop his skills or even win against Kurama. Arriving in the sky, Naruto created a barrier to block Kurama's attack instead of dodging it. Kurama had been charging a bijou bomb while attacking with the tails to conceal it, knowing that Naruto would teleport, and unleashed it once Naruto appeared again. The energy ball of doom looked extremely menacing with its black and dark red coloring, traveled without any hindrance and caused environmental changes with its immense power and speed. Even though it was the Soul Land, Naruto had programmed it to emulate what would happen in reality, so that he would understand the impact of his moves, since he couldn't go around testing his powers in the real world. The bijou laser that Kurama had unleashed at the start had almost caused the planet to collapse, but it luckily didn't hit the core. However, there was an impact from the hole that went from the surface to the other side. Earthquakes, volcanic eruption and such were taking place from that while the air was burning because of the Bijou bomb. Within an instant, it collided with Naruto's golden hexagonal barrier. Naruto had made it with countless layers unlike Kurama. It had 10 layers that were stacked onto each other, and the barrier was continually moving to brush the attacks. The world-ending move was stronger than the Bijou laser, and it broke through the first 5 layers instantly, only slowing down on the 6th layer. Naruto continued to pour his energy into the barrier while charging his attack. With his efforts, Naruto was able to slow it down and put more distance between them while it erupted and expanded in size to swallow him whole. It grew from the size of a hill to the size of a whole mountain range or a small town. The explosion sent shockwaves across the world along with energy waves that displaced the clouds and destroyed everything within a country's range while shaking the whole planet. Naruto was almost eaten up and Kurama looked like he was unleashing a stronger version, so he released one of ultimate moves. The time of birth has come, I am the master of all. Naruto declared his desire and his ambition, anti-life judgment of light. At a first glance, it looks like a ring of light that encircles the earth. In reality, it was an aggregation of 100,000 beams of light, cast over the satellite orbit and with a size close if not equal to that of North America. Each one of these lines carried extreme damage values comparable to a city eraser at least. The band of light was made up of all senjutsu energy. Thus, there was nothing on the surface of the earth that surpassed the heat value of this attack. It was for this reason that it was ranked an anti-world move. It was a move that Naruto had learned after learning Sage Mode, which allowed him the ability to control light and other elementals freely. Originally, the move was a lot weaker, and was only strong enough to destroy a large city or a small country. But, after the recent power-up, it had gone through an immense change, and allowed it to reach a new level. The countless light beams hit the Bijou bomb, and destroyed what was left after Naruto's struggle with it. 50% of the beams were negated from the collision with the attack while the rest hit Kurama, who unleashed a charged Bijou laser that hit the light beams. The whole sky was covered in explosions and had turned fiery red from the burning atmosphere. The charged beam cancelled Naruto's attack and traveled from the planet, hitting the moon and penetrating through it. Kurama ending up cutting the moon in half as he moved the beam to catch Naruto, while Naruto used his earth manipulation to pull the broken pieces of the moon towards Kurama. The enhanced pieces of the moon rained down on the planet, and within nanoseconds the whole moon had been pulled towards Kurama. The pieces moved at light speeds and the result was obvious. The planet was destroyed with the initial bombardment as the rocks were enhanced by senjutsu and didn't lose mass. Kurama wasn't damaged by the bombardment as he blocked them with his barrier and started running towards Naruto while the planet exploded. He unleashed small charged shots and destroyed the large fragments before releasing rapid fire beams towards Naruto that were controlled. There was no other way to capture Naruto as he kept on teleporting. On the other hand, Naruto decided to use another one of his ultimate moves that focused on something other than physical destruction. It focused on spiritual destruction and used his mastery of yin-style genjutsu. It had been very strong from the start, but after learning from the new world it had been enhanced. The criminals had experiences with Zatanna, Martian Manhunter, and other beings that utilized mental powers, and that experience from his victims gave him a boost. My friend, experience the entire world's evil. With those ambitious words, the world around Kurama changed. He was surrounded by darkness that tried to imprint hell upon his brain by showing him unseeable darkness, ugliness that couldn't be acknowledged, and all the crimes of the people in the world that make them want to run away from it all. Those trapped with the darkness would eat themselves to death from pain and hatred, and they would be swallowed by it like the painted space. Avoiding such a curse, and the very concept of blocking it, was nearly impossible according to what Naruto envisioned for the final stage. But for now, it still did a great job and it started interacting with Kurama's darkness. It continued to devour him, and made it impossible to leave the dark domain that had covered him up. Naruto could feel his pain, regrets, and rage. It was a dick move, but it was a move that could ensure victory. He couldn't show mercy during battle. Naruto? Kurama roared with a howl of despair and flaming rage as he broke out of the dark zone with an explosion of energy that spread around him to push away the disgusting shadows. There was no sanity in that gaze. Kurama had let the rage shelter his heart from the pain, and he started fighting like a wild beast. The wild beast crashed into the reformed moon, and caused it shatter from the powerful impact, and it started to create chakra bombs that only floated in space. Even with rage, Kurama still acted strategically, though it had lessened because of the rage clouding him. Naruto found it easier to dodge the wild beast and focused on his real bloodline ability, the adamantine chains. The golden chains appeared out of portals and captured Kurama's limbs while being connected to Naruto's hand. These chains were extremely powerful, and were further continuously enforced by Naruto's power. Making it worse for the victim, the chains had the ability to suppress energy. The suppression made Kurama weaker as it disrupted his chakra control. Cellular stage was already hard for Naruto and he was tiny in size, while Kurama was enormous in physical and chakra size. Kurama continued to roar and struggle against the chains, almost breaking them from the effort. However, Naruto didn't wait for him to get free and used the opportunity to harm him. Focusing energy above his hand, Naruto designed a titanic lance made from all the elements. He gathered the power of all elements and made them work together, not weaken each other, for a powerful impact. Naruto pointed towards Kurama and it moved. The titanic lance started spinning and flew from a vast distance, increasing its speed as it traveled, and even increasing in size. It crashed into Kurama, who continued to struggle against the chain and resist the attack. The lance pierced into Kurama and dragged him towards the reformed earth, and they crashed into the land of ice. Kurama's large body destroyed the icy mountains and crashed into the frozen lake, displacing the water. He was pinned down by the elemental lance into the icy depths, while Naruto appeared above the water where snow fell on top of his skin-tight chakra barrier. "Have you regained your mind, friend? Or do you need more?" Naruto asked generously as he stood on the water and looked down towards his best friend who was still being attacked by the lance that hadn't stopped spinning. That one moment of weakness had allowed Naruto to destroy his chakra control and pin him down. Regardless, he had regained his mental capacity after getting hurt. His body continuously healed but was damaged again, and he was having a hard time breaking the lance with his tails. "I shouldn't have let my anger rule me." Kurama cursed regretfully, as it was also one of the reasons for the downfall of the Bijou and his loss against Madara. He should have learned from his mistakes and fought like Naruto. "You have won the battle, Naruto. Do whatever you want," Kurama muttered in a tired tone as he closed his eyes. Naruto didn't like his weak words and closed the distance between them. He stood on his nose and cancelled his attack. Unlike Kurama, Naruto was almost finished with his energy reserves, as he had used such big attacks with low control. He was only left with 20% of his reserves as he had used 50% with the lance. "I don't like such a tone from you or any of my friends. I have tried to communicate my intentions countless times, so why can you not understand my desire? Give me a chance and I will show you a bright world. Look into my heart. Do you see any lie? I truly care for you. We have been together since my birth. You were the third person I laid my eyes on. We are tied on a spiritual level. You were created to guide humanity, so why don't you guide me?" Naruto put his hand on Kurama and shared his deepest thoughts about him. There was no lie. Naruto had forgiven Kurama long ago and built a bond with him through their daily banter. Just because Kurama spoke harsh and selfish words, it didn't mean that the beast hadn't saved him countless times selflessly. He knew that Kurama also held some positive emotions for him, but he was afraid of fully acknowledging those emotions because he had been betrayed too many times. Kurama looked into those blue eyes and saw Asura, the son of his father. He also saw the sage inside of Naruto. The blue eyes seemed to fluctuate and show a sign of purple, and even the energy seemed to fluctuate. "I will give you a chance, Naruto, and I am sorry for everything I have done." Kurama felt his emotions connect with Naruto's and get amplified. It was something he had felt from his father and Asura, and it caused him to tear up remembering the good times and bad times. "Why are you crying, you big bad fox?" "You are crying," Kurama replied as he covered his eyes with the tails and pushed away Naruto, who was also crying tears of joy and acceptance. "My name is Kurama." With the battle finished, the Soul Land became peaceful once again while the duo sat on top of an icy mountain. Naruto hadn't delayed his decision and opened the cage, so Kurama was free to leave his body. However, Kurama also kept to his promise and showed that he was trustworthy. The free connection between them didn't just grow their bond, but brought a qualitative change inside of them. Naruto and Kurama became one completely, as their energies and souls fused together. Though they didn't focus in the power and possibilities at first. The duo sat together, Naruto sitting on top of Kurama's head, while they talked about each other. They shared their opinions of each other, and Naruto finally heard the full story about Kurama's life, and his life with the sage. The sage wasn't a human, but a hybrid being. His race was known as Otsutsuki, and this species was low in number, but extremely powerful. It was nature's way of balancing things out. Kurama had never met any Otsutsuki, but he had seen portraits of the Queen Mother that ruled Naruto's world in the past. Kaguya Otsutsuki. The sage talked fondly of his mother and showed regrets. Kaguya had been a good mother and ruler, but she was a weak woman. She held fear in her heart and let that overrule her mind, leading to madness. The sage ended up fighting his mother, who was turned into a monster after her mind snapped, with his brother. Both brothers were half human and half alien, and they were the strongest creatures on Earth aside from their mother. They existed in a time when humanity didn't have any chakra. The sage started traveling the world after the battle and experienced life for the first time. He was not a warrior, and he was not a ruler, and it showed in his decisions and actions. The sage decided to gift humanity with chakra. It was something he had been born with, and he was able to give it to others. He changed the genetic structure of humanity and gave them the chakra system that allowed for chakra to be created. However, he only gifted it to his followers, and from these followers it spread across the globe through marriages. He took such an action to connect humanity on a spiritual realm. It was the main reason for that decision. Chakra allowed all users to connect to each other and understand each other on a level beyond words. It was the connection that Naruto and Kurama experienced. There was love and care born from this system, and it rejected hate and despair. It was the antidote for the selfishness of humanity and the solution for Kaguya's eternal dream ability. However, things were never perfect and it all came crashing down. And it wasn't done by anyone else but the son of the sage. The sage had two sons, Indra and Asura. Indra was the genius and cold fighter while Asura was the gentle friend. Both children were excellent in his eyes and they performed spectacularly. But things changed when the sage decided that one of them would become his successor as the leader of the world. The sage had been immortal after gaining the Jubi, but it had also led to his poisoning. To solve that problem, he had found a cure from a different solar system, and that cure granted him another boost in power. His strength doubled and this didn't make him happier, but alarmed him. Even though he had removed the Jubi from his body and split it into 9 creatures, he was still too strong for the world. His strength combined with the 9 creatures, his brother and his sons gave off a strong signal for enemies from across the universe. The Otsutsuki fed on the life force of a planet, and they especially loved planets with high level of power. They didn't just take from the planet, but also the people. By killing every being on the planet, they got all their powers and knowledge. It gave them the ultimate boost, making them one of the strongest species in the universe. The sage didn't think the planet was ready to make such enemies, so he decided to give up his powers to his sons. He chose Asura as the leader because of his friendly quality while denying Indra his birthright as the eldest brother because of his cold and violent nature. Kurama loved the sage, but he believed that had been the worst decision he could have ever made. Kurama wished that he had chosen to live and rule the world as their leader, instead of dying because of some threat. And, just like Kurama had worried had happened, Indra started a war against Asura, and it split the world into factions, leading to the current status of the ninja world. Kurama wished that the sage had been a warrior and a leader, so he could have avoided such a blunder. In Naruto, he saw Asura and Indra. Naruto was the combination of both those individuals, and cancelled both of their faults. Kurama appreciated Naruto's skills and nature, and wished that he had thought in such a manner. It would have helped him avoid many blunders as well. The Bijou had been betrayed by Indra as he almost enslaved them, but Asura helped them and they took his side. They stayed as the silent guardians of humanity, but knowledge about them was destroyed in the wars and the new generation only saw them as monsters. It led to the human side trying to hunt them down and the Bijou retreated further away from humanity, developing hate and disdain for the creatures that had forsaken the ways of their father. Seeing Naruto grow up in their conversations, Kurama had thought of many things he could have done as the leader of the Bijou that could have helped them avoid the tragic end. Unlike him and the sage's sons, Naruto was properly trained from birth. It had been the right step since Kurama had planned to use little Naruto as his instrument of vengeance. Unfortunately, Konoha avoided such an end, and was blessed by the strongest leader in history. Kurama had great expectations for him, and would even help him out at times. When Naruto had almost at the hands of the One Tail, Kurama had interfered and led him to victory. When Naruto and Jiraiya had been surrounded by the 4 and 5 tails, Kurama had allowed Naruto to win the impossible battle. Their bond was not new, it had existed since the day they had laid eyes on each other. Naruto had been cautious of him and angry at him in the start. But over time he grew up and forgave Kurama, as he understood his side of things, and that he needed Kurama. From that day, he would talk to Kurama and share his deepest thoughts with him. Kurama was his secret friend and companion that would never share his secrets. When Kurama saved him from Shukaku, Naruto fully acknowledged Kurama as a friend. Recalling those memories fondly made Kurama blush and his tails moved around happily. While Naruto also felt happy that Kurama thought so much of him. Both of them hadn't thought they each held such respect for each other, though Kurama still thought Naruto was a little bit on the crazy side. "I am not crazy," Naruto muttered as he slept on Kurama's head. He had heard those words from his enemies too many times, but he felt annoyed when close ones called him that. He just didn't react much to those things, but he was also human in the end, and he had similar emotions. "Haha, I was just joking. I know that everything is planned and I like that about you. It's a wonderful gift, forming plans on the go. I wish I could do that." Naruto smiled happily at those words and increased his size to Kurama's to hug him. "Thanks, you can gain it from experiencing different situations and trying to simulate everything in advance." Kurama liked the gesture as it had been long since he had gotten a hug. "Maybe only time will tell. So what have you planned to do now?" Both giants sat beside each other watching the aurora. Naruto didn't hide his plan from Kurama and shared it openly as he needed someone to give a differing opinion. "From my expectations, the forces should start moving to capture or erase me, however they have no clue about me and will have a hard time planning anything. Nonetheless, I don't intend to risk my life. I am going to liberate few cities in the USA before taking out the other countries while the forces are completely focused on USA. While the clones are dealing with that, I will master my new abilities for a month before I start moving for real against the strong parties. During that time, my teams of scientists should have also worked something out about higher stage genetic manipulation." Naruto explained the plan in detail and shared his reasoning. Just like Kurama had said, Naruto covered many points that most people wouldn't think about. Naruto avoided the risk and continued fighting evil directly by taking out the criminals. But that wasn't all. He was fixing the private sector, businesses, schools, hospitals, and media. Most people didn't have time or desire to fact-check things. Plus, it was not an easy thing to do. What information was trustworthy and what was not? Sometimes that was easy and sometimes it was extremely hazy. Media played a huge part in helping people know about things that they needed to know and about the world around them. But the media had become the mouthpiece of the rulers and only misled the viewers. It spread propaganda and hate. It wasn't just the news channels but also social media and even fictional stories. Naruto also planned to take care of that side of things. He was going to utilize it for his benefits. Naruto's clone in the shape of George had coincidentally come across two women that were being screeched at by a banshee. It was short-stature woman with a fat body and blue hair. Her voice along with her appearance didn't do her any favors. Those three women were inside a cafe, making a scene. That fat lady was their boss and all of them were from the comic industry. The woman seemed to have disliked what they had drawn and criticized them heavily. Naruto walked up to them as he thought the lady was making absurd statements and picked up the fallen papers. The girls had drawn an action comic about heroes, and it looked visually appealing except for the content, which was extremely moronic. The girls were the ones who drew it while the fat lady was responsible for the writing, and she was using the comic to spread her woke message about how white people were the evils of society while the rest of the people were angels. The comic had the female hero disparage men like they were bugs and encourage women to cheat on their other halves. It was a comic with no heroism, just threw the trash message at the reader. The fat lady was angry because the artist had made some characters extremely good-looking. She didn't want the main character to look fit and good-looking because it was giving impossible standards to others. Naruto shut her up when she told him to get his fat ass out of the cafe. The double standards were clearly visible. She didn't want others to look down on her, but she did it blatantly. Naruto was good with words, and he broke her down stage by stage, that she ended up unconscious. Throwing the trash out of his sight, Naruto offered the girls a new job where they would dominate the comic industry. He made them start drawing comics about the will of humanity, emperor of mankind. He wrote the script and they would only draw it. He funded everything and marketed it using his sources. The public was ready to consume such a product as they were extremely curious about him. Comics were a good medium and they had been used to sell politics for a long time, especially during the war times. However, the quality had slipped over the years, and trash was being produced mostly. That was the state of Western comics, not the Eastern comics. Those were selling like hot cakes. The state of decline in the comic industry came from the message overriding the storytelling. The writers were pushing their political views into the story and ruining the characters. They were producing characters that were one-dimensional, their only personality being gay, trans, or whatever. Nobody cared about such things. Those people were a minority, and they rarely read comics. So such a decision marginalized the real customers, straight males. Plus, the message wasn't even right. It pushed for females to become whores. It pushed for males to become weak. It pushed for false body positivity. Fatness was good for you, when that was one of the causes of disease and early death. Those fat women then discriminated against the fat men, showing their hypocrisy and desire to change the normal and push good-looking people to like them. Such terrible movements had increased the rate of obesity in children and adults, and were slowly destroying society itself. It also pushed a message about climate change. That was a good message, but the topic was covered in a childish manner, and no proper solution was given. In the comics, the heroes were killing the shopkeeper of a store because there were plastic bags from their store in the ocean. The media was pushing childishness, selfishness, and a victimhood narrative to keep the people divided. It was putting all the blame on one side of the society and pushing a narrative that the system desired. The government system never allowed what they didn't like, and they made sure to push what they wanted. When people appeared that they didn't like, they made them disappear. But that wasn't all. The system even altered the message of those leaders to use for their benefits. They could make past heroes villains, or heroes shaped by their will when they desired. This was true for most governments around the world, and especially USA. So, Naruto took steps to fix that issue, and started extending his control towards media, social media, and entertainment. Other than the entertainment, Naruto even planned to give morning interviews with Jonah using different bodies that he would pause every day. He would use that interview to talk about different topics that would help people grasp his message and see solutions in their lives. For example, there was a problem of unemployment. He wished to help people understand ways of self-sufficiency starting their own business. Naruto intended to guide them and help them open up to all possibilities. Even to the possibility of having their family transfer to a developing nation where their assets would have a higher value and they could live on a very low cost, and start up a business. Developing nations around the world were much cheaper to live in, and the people there were friendlier towards the people from developed nations. It wasn't the Stone Age where people would find it impossible to travel such long distances. And most of the developing nations were extremely safe unless you did something moronic like entering a known criminal area. Something like that would get you killed even in the US. Naruto didn't want to force businessmen to take decisions that were extremely against their work values. Bring back production to developed nations was against most of their interests and even against the interests of the citizens, since the cost of the products would increase. However, he ensured that the businessmen provided living wages as every little job was necessary. Even the delivery guy was necessary as people would realize very easily if that service stopped, though it wasn't a hard job. Did it matter how hard the job was? Yes, it did, and it mattered what the job entailed. But that didn't mean a job should provide less than what a normal person would need for living in the modern world. Life wasn't just about working, so it was unfair when someone was forced to do multiple jobs to survive. Not everyone could go beyond the lower-end job because of the limited seats available. If everyone is the manager, then who will provide the food? Naruto covered everything from the politicians to the businessmen and even the citizens. He didn't leave out the movements, and worked to break them apart and change their message to what he desired. What he believed was the right narrative. Naruto was going to focus on the education aspect and take out the nonsense that the system was trying to push about victimhood and such. He would ensure that the mentally ill people that couldn't accept their gender and wanted to become rainbows would stop being allowed near children. He would ensure that the mentally ill people that couldn't accept their gender and wanted to become rainbows would stop being allowed near children and spread their nonsense. He was going to fix all their mental issues and every other mentally instability. He wanted humanity to have a strong will and mentality. For that, he didn't mind releasing his positive wave for a few hours every day to help the people. On the other hand, the system had allowed creeps to pretend they were women and rape real women, or blatantly watch naked women in the women and children in the change room, and even taken their place in sports and such. The message was being pushed into the kids and confusing them, turning them weak and insane. There was no choice given, and the minority was overruling the majority, the vast majority of the populace. Accepting such a mental instability as a good thing was asking for society to collapse, and it was collapsing slowly while turning full speed towards madness. In a world where such a thing was fine, pedo content was allowed to air and wasn't blocked. It showed the direction where the world was heading, and it was an immoral destination that was a paradise for demons. Kurama heard everything, and was impressed. He couldn't see much to add since Naruto seemed to cover all aspects. I don't have much to add. However, we can spread the story of my father to give a boost to your image. It would show how a single leader could rule the world properly if he is invincible and moral. My father's still the best real example. Other than that, you should have that spirit guy release the mage before it becomes problematic. Powerful beings can take back control, so it will invite trouble for you once he regains some level of power. Finally, I want to share my idea with you that I have been thinking about for a long time. I want you to mix the chakra from other bijou with my body. I should be able to change my structure to become similar to the Jubi and become stronger even without increasing my energy levels. The Jubi stands on a higher stage even with our same energy levels, only the recent technique allowed me to surpass that beast. What do you say, partner? Kurama was silent as he absorbed the information presented and shared his view. In the field of leadership he had no interest and he never thought much about it. Though he did wonder about advice that he could give Naruto at some points of their life, Naruto was surprised to hear about the information about the magician. It was something new for him, and he directly commanded Valkis to release Zatara before the man became conscious and took them down. Zatara was a powerful magician on the same level or above Zatanna. Other than that, he was also intrigued about Kurama's proposal. He had been collecting the Bijou chakra to acquire the different bloodlines and give them a boost. He had tried to grow them like Kurama had done, but he found that without a consciousness the pieces would remain the same size. He had no problem with Kurama's request as he was also interested in what would happen. Of course, anything for you, partner. Naruto laughed as he hugged Kurama's head and gave him a kiss on the head before focusing on the pieces he had collected, and brought them all towards Kurama. Kurama extended his tails towards the small pieces of chakra and absorbed them into his existence. The technique had been perfected through the observation of how his chakra mixed with Naruto's, and the final fusion had given him the last puzzle piece. The process was easy and instant. Kurama took in the pieces and his body shimmered, turning whitish in color while a 10th tail grew out of him. That wasn't the biggest change, because Kurama also found his eyes changed. It was a Mangekyo Sharingan, and Kurama could feel that he needed more pieces before the process finished, because the eyes weren't finished evolving. The change was from the base, as Kurama had now access to all elements and found it natural to manipulate nature. His energy level hadn't increased much, but having combined with Naruto, his level wasn't far off from reaching a planet scale, and that was without Sage Mode. With Sage Mode, Kurama would reach an energy level beyond Planet Earth level. Naruto plus Kurama was equal to around 60%, so Sage Mode would equal 120%. That was just their chakra levels. Naruto combined with Kurama would already be above planet level with their cellular technique, and with the Sage Mode that would be multiplied by 10, putting them at a large planet level. The new change to Kurama didn't make them stronger, but changed their quality, and allowed them a way to grow to the next stage because their chakra control reached a higher stage along with their affinity to all natures. It also meant that Naruto wouldn't need to equip Pain's Rinnegan, and he could just unlock his own by taking the DNA from the eye. That should be enough to help the process. But he decided to wait and earn it. He wasn't in a rush to increase his powers indefinitely. He needed time to consolidate his new stages of power. He had grown so much in a short time that he might end up destroying all of humanity instead of saving it. "You are the coolest fox I have seen," Naruto commented as Kurama changed the color scheme to white with gold and red mixed in. There were floating golden rings around the tails that had runes etched onto them, while there were red and gold metallic gauntlets on the limbs. He looked truly majestic. With Naruto's plan finalized, his real body took residence near the core of the planet and continued training in both worlds. While his real body trained, Naruto's clones kept appearing to continue doing their job. He controlled random individuals every day to do the interviews. He trained with his team every day, and he continued to liberate different cities each day. However, none of his enemies were able to locate him. Naruto appeared from beneath the earth without a single trace and only left behind his work. He ignored targets that were protected by his enemies. Unlike Clarion and the Suicide Squad, Naruto could easily sense them and avoided them, as he didn't want to risk giving them any information. He wanted to appear at his full power and take them out like a sudden lightning strike. Other than that, the story about the Sage of Six Paths started along with the story about the Emperor of Mankind. The story was being published weekly with great art, and both captured the interest easily as people were hungry for more information. In his story, Naruto showed them what he did and his deeds. It was a slap to his enemies, showing that he didn't think anything of them. He even showed in his stories how he would dominate them in battle. To the citizens, it was an exciting piece of storytelling, and it even played the part of news since it was happening. Though many of the things were still fiction, as Naruto had yet to fight most of the people. However, the people didn't know that, and none of the other parties were willing to come out and reject it. That wasn't all. Naruto also started animated projects and live-action series to cover all the demographics. He used other stories beside his own from the history of the ninja world with some modification. Other than that, Naruto revived the planet. He erased all the barren lands and covered every piece of open land with useful greenery, beautifying the lands. In places where there was a need for food, Naruto covered the land with vegetables and fruits. He cleaned the oceans and the lands from waste, having the world absorb them or erasing them completely. He gave new life to all the existing plants and animals by cleaning away all the diseases and chemicals within. He didn't stop at the animals, and Naruto covered humanity as well. He covered everyone on the planet. He released energy signals from different parts of the world to cover all of it. The energy cleaned up the body and strengthened it. It solved the mental diseases and gave people the power to fight against other diseases, since Naruto was still not capable of doing such a thing from afar. He needed to get close and target the source of the life-threatening diseases to cure them. Other than that, Naruto teleported army personnel back to their home countries. The army of another country had no right to stay in another country, as it would most likely be used to control it or cause chaos. Most of the army personnel were from USA because they were the de facto evil empire of the modern world, and they needed hundreds of military bases outside of their country to control their territories. That was the true purpose of their existence, and not the nonsense they propagated: police the world and save it from evil. The USA had no right to do such things, and none should ever believe such nonsense from them, because the country was responsible for the destruction around the world and the collapse of several countries. It never got tired from trying to have other countries fall or become enslaved to their whims. It wasn't the fault of the lower-end soldiers, but the people at the top. Sadly, soldiers always died for pointless reasons and personal profit. The world Naruto was creating had no place for internal wars, so he brought the people back home safely and put them outside cities so that they weren't killed by the police or someone because of their sudden appearance. Naruto didn't just work all the time, as his clone spent time with his team and separately with different individuals. After training, Naruto would have team outings and they would engage in different activities. They would go watch movies together. They would go eat from different restaurants. They would go out for shopping. They would go to amusement parks and water parks. They would engage in extreme sports. Many of these things were also new to Naruto, and he enjoyed spending the time. He also showed the team extreme sports from his world. Skydiving into a forest or a water body without any safety equipment. They would have to stop their body at the last moment in some manner. The one who stopped the closest to the ground won. There was the jungle tag, where they jumped across trees and used their abilities while playing the game. There was also the fish adventures, where the ninja transformed into fish and explored the water body and fought against a bigger fish. There was the beast war, where the players transformed into their favorite animal and fought against each other. There were other games about weapon specialties and elemental abilities. These activities helped the team to get to know each other and showed that Naruto was really willing to befriend them, not treat them like maggots. He also entertained the girls and went on individual dates with them. Naruto had experience with such activities and made the girls really happy as they saw another side of him. He cooked for them and they cooked for him. He designed things for them. He shared stories with them and made them laugh. He took them on walks and he took them to dance. He sang with them and he played with them, conquering everything. Naruto didn't forget to spend time with Conan and Laura. He gave them his time and closed the distance between them. He was a person with strong charisma, so it was hard to ignore him and leave him. He could read people like an open book and could easily penetrate their hearts, befriend them. Conan lightened up over the course of things and kept on reminding him that she won't give the eyes until she saw how he handled resistance. Naruto had no issue with that and kept repeating that every day. While Laura had been visited by his Earth clones, they formed from the ground near the girl. She had been transferred to Young Justice and Naruto visited her secretly as promised. Without a doubt, Naruto became her strongest bond in the current world and made her happy with his presence. And it wasn't just these people, as Naruto's clones that had taken different identities also formed new bonds. His team had become known as the Ultimates, and they went around fighting petite crime. During that time, the clones got closer to Birds of Prey, the Justice League, Titans, and many other heroes. Even Supergirl got to know him and had talks with Gilgamesh. It seems she was curious about him, and might have felt the similarity between him and the Emperor. The only difference was the fact that the Emperor persona was dominating and treated others as subordinates. In just a week, the world saw massive change across the globe, and finally the average citizen had hope for the future. A hero had come that would save them from the darkness and despair. A hero that didn't just fight the villains but also fought against the societal issues. It was a hero that literally changed the world, unlike those before him, who could show nothing literal for their achievements, and it was all done within a week. By the end of a month since Naruto's appearance, the world was completely focused on him and singing his praises. The result of his actions was clear-cut, and every city that he had liberated showed a little taste of what was to come. Everyone wanted Naruto to come to their regions except the criminals. Many small-time criminals had started to leave the field and look for other jobs before Naruto came to their area. It was evident that Naruto's powers were real and he was going to liberate mankind, and none had the ability to stop him. He was invincible. He was the will of humanity. He was the emperor of mankind. With his interference, even the darkest places like Gotham had been transformed into a wonderful metropolis that was extremely safe and clean. There was no darkness or despair or uncleanliness in the region. The citizens seemed to have collectively snapped out of their nightmares and woken up to a beautiful reality. The affect was massive, as smiles could be seen on the people, and people were being chatty towards strangers, when talking to strangers in the streets of Gotham was considered highly risky. The world seemed to have become a beautiful place within a month. Naruto's effectiveness was apparent for everyone, which caused different reactions in the various forces. The villains were terrified of what would happen to them, as they saw many of their people change, and saw some of them die. And they were frustrated and angry at being unable to capture him. Not everyone lived with the second chance, and many people had died. Not everyone was smart enough to understand and adapt to the coming of the new era. And Naruto also didn't forgive people that committed murder and other crimes after his authority had been established in a region. The criminals feared him while the heroes saw what they could have done, if they had been active. All the things that Naruto did, they could have accomplished as a team. However, they also disliked him because of his murder and torture. They had come across the changed criminals and saw the fear in their minds. They saw what Naruto had done to them, and it was abhorrent. It was inhumane and sent chills down their spines. None of them had expected that Naruto could be so cruel when he was so kind to them, and they finally realized his values. Good people were given respect and rewards. Naruto gifted people that did good deeds, and the reward was better according to the value of the deed. While he treated criminals as worthless meatbags that could be used and erased if they failed to change after his commands. They had located everyone that Naruto had tortured, and removed the explosive seals from them. Naruto had allowed it and didn't resist against Satana's magic. However, that didn't solve anything, since Naruto had saved their life force signal into his mind, and a clone was always watching the people that were marked. It also didn't remove the fear from their minds, so majority of those criminals didn't dare to go back to the dark path, and the unfortunate ones were made example. Everyone saw how they died a terrible death. It was sent directly to their minds, and they watched the criminal scum get erased piece by piece. It showed the heroes that they couldn't stop the killings unless Naruto was captured. But they were exasperated just like the villains, as they couldn't capture him. It was simple. He was supported by Gaia, and none of them could do anything against his backer. Talking about Gaia, Naruto finally met his mysterious back in the second week when he started to die because of his increase in power. Just like the sage, Naruto activated the virus within his genetics after he reached a level of power that was beyond his species. His cells started to reject the chakra, causing the energy to be expelled, and the cells started to die off at an alarming rate. The process was extreme, unlike the sage, because Naruto was more on the human side, and what he had done was more severe than the sage. Naruto had gone from city eraser to large planet level with Kurama. The power increase was massive, and the consequences of that step came knocking. Naruto was unable to save himself, and not even Kurama could do anything, as he also felt the virus affect him. It was much more severe. Kurama was purely energy, so he was literally losing his life. Just as Naruto was thinking of death since he was stuck in the middle of the planet without any ability to leave, Gaia came to his rescue. Naruto was summoned to her realm and was relieved of his suffering. 1 minute too late, and he would have gone to meet his parents. It was an emergency situation, but he still kept his composure and never cried about it. Greeting his savior with a smile, Naruto approached the beautiful woman with respect and gratitude on his heart. "Thank you for saving me, Miss Gaia. I will make sure to repay this favor soon." Naruto didn't like owing favors, and he had confidence that he could repay them. The woman known as Gaia was extremely beautiful, with brown hair and green eyes. She wore a white dress and gave off a gentle feeling. But that was what she felt for Naruto. Gaia despised humanity and had almost destroyed it countless times in the past. Even now she had no good feeling for the pests. She wasn't some nice woman and had blood of innocence on her hand. Naruto knew about the myths, but he didn't know the facts, and Gaia hadn't acted in thousands of years. So, in his eyes, she was good enough and didn't need to be tortured. She was an extremely powerful being and was known as a primordial. She was being that represented the planets across the universe, making her a universal being of power. The Olympians were below her in the hierarchy, and all of them existed in the realm of immortals, which consisted of all the pantheons, and each immortal had their own personal domain within that pantheon. No worries, child, think not of this as a favor. To me you are my dear child, and a mother never asks anything of their children. And it was I that brought you here without permission. Gaia replied with a smile as she appeared beside Naruto. He wasn't able to react to her movement, and luckily he didn't need to. She touched his face lovingly and gave him a hug before kissing his hair and forehead. It really felt like Kushina was embracing him, and he didn't know why she was being so motherly. You are so gentle and beautiful, Gaia said as she held his face between her hands. Naruto didn't avoid her touch or make a fuss. He was trying to get a read on her character, and it was confusing him. She genuinely cared for him, but he saw no reason. I hope you don't mind, but I have some inquiries. I appreciate the concern shown by a charming woman, but I need a reason. Why do you care about my well-being? Why am I here? Naruto asked as he placed his hands over hers and put them down while looking into her eyes. Not many people would have the guts to stare at her so impudently, and most of those who didn't survive. However, she didn't mind and just smiled as she knew how he would react. Gaia led him to a table and offered him a seat. The domain that she inhabited was filled with greenery, and the duo was sitting in the middle of a flower field filled with small spirits and butterflies. I don't mind answering your curiosity. Naruto, you are vital to the survival of this world. Without you it will disappear in the future. I searched everywhere for the savior, but none of them were worthy. They were all powerful, even more than you, but they all lacked the leadership qualities that you possess. You are the leader that the universe needs for survival, so my care for you is obvious, especially because you are loved by nature and were born on Earth. You are like my son, so I am always ready to support you. Gaia replied in a tone filled with adoration, showing that she might have been watching him for many years. She also just casually dropped a bomb. Naruto didn't scream, but he felt like flipping the table. He was already occupied with many responsibilities, and now he was told that the universe needed him. His brain operated at maximum capacity, and Naruto chuckled. I already planned to conquer the universe, so there is no issue with that task. I am grateful for the advance warning. Though, why can't you do it? Aren't you extremely powerful, or is it a problem beyond your existence? Naruto didn't avoid the issue, and tried to get the proper details to make the plans for the future. He needed to know where the enemy stood. It was clear that it was most likely stronger than Gaia. I wish I could do such a thing, but even I lack the capability for it. It involves an existence beyond my power, which is why there is a need for a leader that can unite others. You will need support of others like me, and you will need to step up to my realm of power. I will help you in this task and allow you to operate on your own mostly, since I am not allowed to interfere directly in the mortal world. I see. And what is the deadline for this crisis? You have 20 to 30 years before it starts. I don't have the exact date, and it was extremely hard to even get this information. Gaia replied as her expression fell a little bit because she had lost her daughter Ria because of it. Ria had tried divination for a future threat, and ended up dying after uttering a few warnings. It had brought great pain to her heart, as Ria was her beloved daughter and she couldn't bring her back. Whatever was coming, it could erase all of them. Naruto put his hand on Gaia's as he saw the small sign of sadness. He thought about 20 years and believed that it was more than enough time for him to complete the task. It would have been impossible in the ninja world, but in the current world, it was just a matter of time. I will be victorious, so please keep a smile on your face, as sadness doesn't suit you. Gaia smiled at his words, as she had expected that level of confidence from him. He truly believed with all his being that he was the emperor and the will of humanity. It was that confidence, persistence, charisma, and wisdom that was needed for the task. I believe in you. Naruto felt healed by those words and gaze. If you are lonely, I don't mind keeping you company, or is that also against your rules? Naruto offered his companionship since he felt that Gaia needed it, and it will also make their relationship real. Ha ha ha, you are such a precious child. Gaia laughed joyfully at his proposal and agreed wholeheartedly while also inviting Kurama. 1 month passed and none could deny that it was anything but eventful. Naruto finally came out of his seclusion and went to one of his bases to take a bath. He had been sitting in one place for too long. It was the longest meditation he had ever done. His body hadn't needed to eat or move because nature energy filled him up, and even his chakra could replace his need for food for a very long time. The month of meditation had been very fruitful and Naruto had leveled up. He had learned to fully control his power once again, and he had reached the molecular stage, granting him a great power. Mastering the cellular stage with Kurama had granted him large planet level, but with the molecular stage, Naruto had reached star level of power. His chakra had become extremely dense and was increasing in quality every second along with his very being. It was increasing the power of his base, and that increased his final power level even further. He was now ready to actually compete with the threats on Earth without having to worry about getting one-shotted. However, there was still the problem of being knocked out of his Bijou Sage mode and losing control of the molecular stage. Being knocked out of either of them for a second could be extremely dangerous because Naruto would drop to large city level of power. To counter that problem, Naruto had managed to program his Fuinjutsu seals to make the process automatic. Now he could put his mind to ease about losing control and becoming fodder during battle. However, even the Fuinjutsu seal matrix wasn't invincible. The seals were engraved on his cells while the core was engraved on the bones, but these seals could also fail through outside interference. So there was always a risk of getting depowered, especially if someone who could null his chakra appeared. Nonetheless, Naruto didn't worry much as life was always filled with risks, and even a normal human lived a risky life where he could die from a falling brick or an unexpected car. Appearing in his room in the base, Naruto removed his clothes and entered the hot spring that he prepared. Entering the hot water brought him great comfort, and Kurama joined him in the bath as a chibi version. It had been a long time since Kurama appeared in the real world, so he very much appreciated the hot bath and dived into the water. When do we fight? I really can't wait to see the look on their faces. Kurama was excited after they came out of training. They had been sparring against each other, and clones of all the creatures that Naruto knew about. In the Soul Land they had spent 30 days and at their speeds of multiple times light. That was a very long time. It was especially wonderful after Gaia had helped them by giving the duo data on the different creatures around the universe, so they had no need to worry about being ignorant of some species. Naruto smiled at those words as he also felt a similar excitement. He was a warrior, and with all that power at his disposal, it was hard not to want to test it out. However, he could never allow a risky move and needed to move with a plan in mind. Soon we will fight. I have already picked out the targets, and we are going to hit them hard before anyone can interfere, Naruto replied, as he put his hand through his golden hair and couldn't help but laugh at the naivete of the heroes. Who is our prey? Kurama inquired with an animalistic grin. The evil beast loved to bully the weak creatures, and he knew they were about to bully some weaklings. He could just imagine their expressions of fear and despair as they begged for mercy. The global guardians will be our first target. After that we will go for Asia and Africa before finally settling for Europe and America, Naruto replied as he used the light manipulation to show the shapes of people they would end up fighting against. His people had been gathering data about the groups in each continent, and he had collected it to form his plans. He had evaluated the different groups and ranked them accordingly. Penguin and Black Mask were given the task, and they had done wonderfully. The duo was fully charged with energy and doing work without stop as they saw opportunity in Naruto. They saw his work and understood that there was a very low chance of failure, and the rewards were enormous. Both of them had the chance to become key figures of the human empire of the new era, and they embraced it completely. Penguin gathered data from Europe and America, while Black Mask traveled afar and gathered data from Africa, Asia, and Australia. That wasn't all, as Black Mask was involved in the manipulation of the Australia-based hero team, and he had managed to gather all of them in a single location for Naruto. The Global Guardians were an international team of heroes created during the Cold War. Many of its members were also active on their own, but their main operations were near to Australia's Cine Stormwatch and Justice League took care of the Europe and America side of things. Guys, this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed well. Until next time, peace.